The sandwich that changed everything. The evening sky painted the city streets in soft shades of amber and gold. Sarah pulled her apron strings tighter around her waist as she stepped out of Miller's Corner Cafe, the small sandwich shop where she had worked for the past 2 years. The cool autumn air carried the scent of fallen leaves and distant coffee from the shops that lined the historic downtown district at 23. Sarah had learned to find beauty in the simple rhythms of her life. Each morning, she would arrive at the cafe before dawn, helping to prepare fresh bread and arrange the day's ingredients. Each evening, she would walk home through these same streets, carrying with her the satisfaction of honest work and the hope for something more. Tonight felt different, though. Her manager had given her the sandwich that hadn't sold, a turkey and avocado on sourdough with crisp lettuce and tomatoes. It was her favorite, and she had been looking forward to it all day. Her stomach rumbled softly as she thought about the quiet dinner that awaited her in her small apartment. As Sarah turned the corner onto 5th Street, she noticed a small figure sitting alone on the concrete steps of an old brick building. The little girl couldn't have been more than 6 or 7 years old. She wore a cream-colored coat that seemed too large for her tiny frame, and her brown hair was pulled back in loose pigtails that had come slightly undone. Sarah slowed her pace. The child sat perfectly still, her small hands folded in her lap, staring down at the sidewalk with an expression that seemed far too serious for someone so young. There was something heartbreaking about the way she sat there, so small and quiet, in the growing darkness of the evening. "Hello there," Sarah said gently, approaching the steps. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" The little girl looked up with wide green eyes that seemed to hold depths of emotion that surprised Sarah. She nodded slowly, but Sarah could see the uncertainty flickering across her young face. "I'm Emma," the child said in a voice barely above a whisper. "I'm waiting for my daddy. He said he would be right back." Sarah's heart squeezed with concern. She glanced around the quiet street, noting how empty it had become as the business day ended. The streetlights were beginning to flicker on, casting long shadows between the buildings. "How long have you been waiting here, Emma?" Sarah asked, settling down on the step beside her. Emma's small shoulders rose and fell in a tiny shrug. "A long time, I think. My tummy started making noises." Without hesitation, Sarah opened the brown paper bag that contained her dinner. The sandwich looked perfectly crafted: thick slices of turkey, creamy avocado, and fresh vegetables nestled between 2 pieces of golden sourdough bread. Her own hunger pangs reminded her that she hadn't eaten since her brief lunch break hours earlier, but looking at Emma's small, tired face, Sarah felt something shift inside her chest. This wasn't even a decision that required thought. It was simply what needed to be done. "Would you like to share my sandwich?" Sarah asked, carefully unwrapping the paper around the food. "I work at a cafe, and this is one of our best ones. I think you might like it." Emma's eyes widened, and for the first time, a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. "Really, but it's your dinner. Food always tastes better when you share it with someone," Sarah said warmly, breaking the sandwich in half and offering the larger piece to Emma besides. "I'd love the company." They sat together in comfortable silence as Emma took small, careful bites of the sandwich. Sarah watched as color returned to the little girl's cheeks, and her earlier sadness seemed to lift slightly with each bite. "This is really good," Emma said between bites. "You must be a really good cook." Sarah smiled. "I just helped make them, but I'm glad you like it." As they ate, Emma began to open up. She told Sarah about her favorite books, about the drawings she had made at school that day, and about how her daddy sometimes had to work very late for important meetings. Her voice grew stronger and more animated with each passing moment. "He promises he always comes back," Emma said, looking down the street hopefully. "Sometimes it just takes longer than he thinks it will." Sarah felt a wave of admiration for this little girl's faith and patience. At such a young age, Emma seemed to understand that sometimes the people we love have responsibilities that pull them away. But that doesn't mean they love us any less. Just as Emma was finishing the last bite of her sandwich half, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the street. A man in an expensive dark suit was walking quickly toward them, his face etched with worry and relief in equal measure. He called out, his voice carrying both joy and concern. "There you are, sweetheart. I'm so sorry I'm late." The little girl jumped up from the steps and ran into her father's arms. Sarah watched as he lifted Emma up, holding her close and whispering apologies into her hair. "Daddy, this is Sarah," Emma said, turning in her father's arms to look back at her new friend. "She shared her dinner with me because my tummy was making hungry noises." The man turned to look at Sarah, and she could see the genuine gratitude flooding his features. He was younger than she had expected, probably in his early 30s, with kind eyes that reminded her of Emma's. "I cannot begin to thank you enough," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I got caught up in a meeting that ran much later than expected. I kept calling my assistant to check on Emma, but ... double quotes, he shook his head. "That's no excuse. You showed incredible kindness to my daughter." Sarah stood up, brushing crumbs from her apron. "It was nothing really. Emma is a wonderful little girl. She was very patient and brave." "It wasn't nothing," the man said firmly. "What you did tonight, sitting with a stranger's child, sharing your own meal, that says everything about who you are." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. extending it toward Sarah. "My name is David Mitchell. I'd like to repay your kindness somehow." Sarah glanced at the card but didn't immediately reach for it. "You don't need to repay anything. I'm just glad Emma is okay." David smiled, the same gentle smile that Sarah had seen on Emma's face. "I run a foundation that supports community programs and small businesses. I'd love to talk with you about how we might be able to help your cafe or perhaps discuss other opportunities. What you did tonight shows the kind of character that's rare in this world." Sarah finally took the business card, surprised by the weight of the paper and the elegant lettering. As she read it, she realized that David Mitchell wasn't just being polite, he was someone who clearly had the means to make a real difference. "Thank you," she said simply. "I'd like that." As Sarah walked home that evening, her stomach empty but her heart full, she reflected on the unexpected turns that life could take. She had given away her dinner and gained something far more valuable, the reminder that kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change everything. Sometimes the most ordinary moments become the most extraordinary memories, and sometimes sharing a simple sandwich can open doors we never knew existed.